Hi everyone, in this video we're going to talk about 5 things that every maternity photographer should know about how it feels to be pregnant. If we're just meeting, welcome to my channel. My name is Ksenia Pro. I'm a portrait and fashion photographer based out of Washington, D.C. And I've been doing a lot of maternity shoots recently, so now you can call me a maternity photographer as well. Also, 2 years ago, I had my daughter, so I know everything about how it feels to be pregnant and being in front of the camera while you're pregnant because I also did my maternity shoot. So let's dive into the video. Thing number 1 that you should know is it's not comfortable, period, and it's not as easy moving around, especially when it gets closer to the due date. So knowing that, I actually recommend scheduling maternity sessions in between 28 and 36 weeks so it doesn't get too close to the due date. The due date is around week 40 for those who don't know. So when I talk to my client, I usually say as long as you show already and you feel comfortable, please come over to the session because the earlier we do it, the better. And it's not just because it gets more uncomfortable when it gets closer to the end of the pregnancy, but because of possible risk of delivering early. So for example, I had my daughter at 38 weeks instead of week 40. So those last 4 weeks, they're not gonna be comfortable and there is a risk that the baby gonna come early. So I'd rather not risk it unless they have to schedule a maternity session last minute and they have to deliver in like 2 weeks. Then I try to schedule them as early as possible. So another point of being uncomfortable is to actually taking care of your client during the maternity session because it's not as easy for them to hold the pose, to stay in uncomfortable positions because a lot of time the weight of the baby and the baby moves during the shoot as well, so don't forget about that. And it's kind of hard to hold the same position because there's a lot of strain goes to the lower back. The legs are gonna get tired. If you have to lay down on the floor, it's not comfortable as well. It's hard to getting up and down on your knees. So that takes extra time, and just be there for your client. Ask them before you put them in a certain position if it's gonna be comfortable for them and if they're up for it. And usually I give them a hand just to help them, for example, getting up and down on the floor. If they don't have a husband or a friend to help out, then I'll be next to them helping them move around as well. Also throughout the shoot, I always ask, are you okay? Does it feel okay? If you feel anything uncomfortable, please let me know right away because we don't have to do it, or you don't have to hold that pose for too long. It's not worth it. So I also try to shoot as quickly and as efficiently as I can. So for example, I don't want my client to move around too much because she's uncomfortable to begin with. So we try to say I position her in one pose and then we make minor changes. For example, changing the position of the hands. Maybe I'll ask her to look down, smile, soft smile, just look at me this way. So instead of moving her around entirely, which is not comfortable for her, I try to create different shots with the same pose without moving too much. And it's actually a general rule I've found for all of my portrait sessions. So the thing number 2, this is an obvious one. So naturally, you put some extra weight when you get pregnant. Everybody is different. And it's just so intimidating when you see all those gorgeous pictures of beautiful pregnant women on Instagram because they all look so teeny tiny with a little bump that looks very cute. But not everybody looks like that. And in fact, from my experience, only a few women actually look that skinny with a little bump when they get pregnant. So there's a few things that you have to keep in mind. First, ensure your client that she's gonna look great in the pictures. Second, use the right poses and the right angles to make it look nicer. Don't make her look bigger than she already is because she's already concerned about her weight during pregnancy. And rule number 3, use Photoshop if needed, but in moderation. Even before we start the shoot, I make sure her dress fits nicely, that the underwear fits nicely, so it actually creates like a more slimming effect for her. And she sees that I'm noticing those things and she feels more comfortable working with me as well. Another thing that you can do during the shoot, if you get like a really nice shot of her. Usually I show like more of a wider shot because it tends to be slimming. I show it to my client just to get her comfortable in front of the camera and get her comfortable in the final result that we're actually getting. So she sees it, gets encouraged. She's like, oh my God, I didn't know I looked that pretty. With all the hair and makeup and the beautiful dress, of course it looks pretty. So when it comes to posing, I'm actually doing an additional video just about poses for maternity photo shoot, so please check it out. And lastly, when you edit the pictures, I use Photoshop Liquify filter quite a lot for my maternity sessions, but not to make my clients look 10 sizes smaller, but just to accentuate those new curves that they have in their body. And sometimes the dress is not the right fit, so you make sure the curves show nicely and that my maternity clients and their pictures look nice and shaped with the new curves. Thing number 3 that you should know about being pregnant is that most of the time you feel hot. So don't make your studio feel toasty. If you're shooting outside, make sure you pick the time when it's not too hot. If it's during the summertime, pick either early in the morning or later in the evening when the sun goes down a little bit, because otherwise you're gonna get a lot of sweat in your pictures and it's not gonna be comfortable for your client or for you. So for example, if I'm doing a maternity session in the studio, ahead of time before my client arrives, I either open a window if it's like a colder month, or I crack up my AC for a little bit cooler temperature just to keep the studio nice and cool and refreshing. When she comes in, I ask her, how's the temperature? How do you feel? Do you want it cooler, warmer? I always offer some water or some kind of drink to her if she didn't bring her own. So it's always nice to ask about those little things that she needs because it makes her feel like she's taken care of. So speaking of shooting in the hot weather, if you have to shoot in the middle of the day, make sure you stay mostly in the shade, because I actually had an incident one time. One of my maternity clients, we were shooting outside during summer, and she just fainted for a few minutes, and I was freaked out, to be honest with you. I was calling 911. Gladly, her husband was there to help me. So what happened, we were taking pictures in the shade. We're actually shooting at Jefferson Memorial here in Washington, D.C., so it was really nice, one of my favorite locations to shoot because it always has nice shade and nice light. So we were taking pictures and she's like, oh, I'm not feeling so well, let me just sit down for a moment on the cool concrete floor, marble floor. So she's sitting down against the pillar, and then the next thing I know, her eyes are closed and she's unresponsive. So we're trying to like wake her up. It looks like she's sleeping. I'm like, oh my God, she's fainted. So I tried to call 911. They're not picking up. So we were doing different things like fanning the air on her, putting some water on her, loosening the outfit. But eventually, like in a few minutes or so, she opened her eyes. She's like, oh, what happened? She was okay. She was just, I think her blood sugar was too low because she didn't eat before coming to the session. So it was all fine in the end. We continued the shoot, so she had some water and a snack and she felt better. But just for you to know, if to avoid this, first of all, make sure your maternity client is comfortable, and if this happens, now you know what to do. So thing number 4, when you're pregnant, you are more sensitive to different smells. Even if nobody else is noticing anything, you would feel it. Especially when it comes to food, cooking food, or food sitting somewhere, trash, or even like some scented candles that I couldn't stand when I was pregnant. It triggers the morning sickness even if it's during the day. And it can be actually a very serious condition. So try to avoid anything that would trigger that. So I wouldn't burn any candle if I have a maternity client coming in. I wouldn't put any perfume on if I have a maternity client coming in. I actually don't put any perfume when I shoot in the studio space because the room is so tight, so you kind of smell everything. So usually if I have a maternity client coming in, I actually open up the window just a little bit to let some fresh air in into the studio, just so it's nice and airy and they don't, smell anything. So finally, number 5 that you should know, there's actually 2 in 1. So some of the women, when they get pregnant, they get swollen, especially around their ankles, their legs. And some of the women get skin discoloration. So most of them known as the dark line on the stomach. But a lot of darker skin toned women, they get discoloration on their neck, which I didn't know about. But I found it out while working with my maternity clients. So about the discoloration, just be very open with your client. Ask them if they want you to kind of tone it down and Photoshop it in the pictures. So I usually do without asking them because my pictures look I like the clean look. So I kind of smooth out the skin tone and even out the skin tone anyways in all of my pictures. So I do that for them as well. And then for the swelling, obviously they don't want to see elephant feet in the pictures because that's what happened with me. I was swelling so much during my maternity session that my feet literally look like little elephant feet. First of all, try to talk to your client before the session. Make sure, they come hydrated, but they don't drink too much water before the session. Especially if it's towards the end of the day, you tend to swell towards the evening. Try to ask them to keep the feet elevated before the shoot, before they start doing their hair and makeup. But if it already happens, the only thing you can do is to pose and crop the pictures, just not to show the feet. Or in Photoshop, you can always liquify it a little bit so the ankle looks actually normal size and not swollen. So question of the day for you guys. What's your main challenge when you try to do maternity sessions? Is it posing? Is it lighting? Is it communicating with your client? Is it editing? Let me know in the comment. These were the 5 things that you should know about being pregnant if you're a maternity photographer, because that's gonna make you a better maternity photographer. All right, you guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If it was useful for you, click subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and click the bell button. It was Ksenia Pro, and I'll see you in the next one. See what kind of video we're doing today.